It seemed to start as a simple cold. Then authorities thought perhaps it was a standard flu. It wasn't long before it was clear that the world was dealing with something much, much worse. Countries tried denying entry, mandating shutdowns, and limiting travel. But it continued to spread. It spread to every corner of the globe, and it started mutating. Governments tried everything they could as thousands upon thousands were dying. Civil unrest began to spread. Now, almost 2 years into the pandemic, as the bodies are piling up, the worst has happened.
Hello and welcome back to another 31 Days of Horror 2021 video. Now, I'm here by myself. Leslie did watch this movie, but we watched it. I mean, I'm not filming this right after we watched it. And I don't know if she just wasn't into it and wasn't paying attention to it, but she was like, I don't remember enough about it. So I'm on my lonesome here to tell you about the film Bingo Hell. Yes, that's bingo like the B-I-N-G-O game, and hell like the place where Satan lives. Yes. As Leslie has been apt to do, because she doesn't like the movies that I have in my collection that we're going to watch for these 31 Days of Horror things, we went to a streaming service, and this time we went to Amazon Prime. Yes, this is a 2021 video exclusive to Amazon Prime. And, yeah. So if you don't have Amazon Prime, I don't think you can watch this movie. I doubt it's ever going to get a physical release. So, yeah, it is what it is. The film, you know, it hits that sweet spot. It's about an hour and 25 minutes long. You know, that hour and a half, which is what a lot of people say is kind of like that sweet spot for this type of film. And as one might expect with a name like Bingo, it involves some old people. So essentially this is, takes place in, I don't think, is it a town, or, I think when I looked it up it said in the barrio of Oak Springs, so, I don't know, there was a sign saying welcome to Oak Springs, so it's in a place called Oak Springs. And there's a community hall center, where they play bingo, right? The old little group of old people. I say old, but whatever. Well, I guess they're technically all senior citizens. We'll put it at that. Because what old is relative, right? I'm old. And essentially, the film has a lot to do. Obviously, there's a little bit on age, a little bit on gentrification, because this is an older barrio where a lot of the old residents and shops and stuff are being sold and replaced by, you know, hippie, yuppie, whatever you want to call them, type establishments. And these older individuals find that they are not too keen with things changing. And thanks to, say, I guess you call her the leader of the group, Lupita, this group is kind of keeping what's left of the community together, or trying to at least. And unfortunately, their beloved bingo hall gets sold. And this is one thing that I found weird. I thought this was like a community center, so in my mind, a community center is like government owned, but apparently this was owned by an individual, and he sold it out to, we'll say, generally you look at it as like big business type thing, or it wasn't sold out to like one of the yuppie companies. It was sold out to, we'll say, an entity or someone who is evil and opens up a bigger, flashier bingo hall. And yeah, it turns out perhaps this individual is more powerful than the bond that they all share. Yeah, so essentially somebody comes in, buys the community center where they play bingo, and turns it into a very, very casino-like bingo hall, with gigantic prizes. It seems like they only, whenever they do have the bingo, the evening of the bingo, they only play one game for a prize, and that prize happens to be big, and it gets bigger every time. And not that, I will say this is a spoiler, but it's pretty obvious when watching the films. Like, the person, the entity, the whatever it is behind this bingo hall is in it for nefarious reasons, and it does have that kind of, make a deal with the devil type of thing going on, right? And so it deals a little bit with greed and how money can often break apart friendships, etc., etc., etc. The film is directed by, I think is it Gigi Saul Guerrero, or Gigi? I think it's Gigi. Who I'd never heard of this person before, but they had previously done the TV miniseries Choose Your Victim, Barbarous Mexico, which was a anthology movie, and they did the Dia de los Muertos segment, and they also did a segment in the ABC's of Death 2.5, and that was M is for Matador. There's a TV series called La Quinceañera that they did, and they did, I believe this was a Spanish film called Aztec. Well, not a, maybe it is a film, but again, it's another one of those anthology type things, and they did the segment called Dulce Muerte, and then also did a bunch of short films and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised to see that there was a heavy, we'll say, Latin American influence in this film. So yeah. In terms of writing, it was written also by the same person. And in terms of writing credits, they also wrote Choose Your Victim, of course, their Barbarous Mexico segment, La Quinceañera. But they also did writing on the segment Madre de Dios, which was in the Bloody Bits Shorts Compilation Volume 2, which is technically just a short film. The Bloody Bits Shorts compilation, as far as I know, is just some of the shorts from that festival. It is a local film festival. Oddly enough, Bloody Bits is out of Toronto. I think. Isn't it? I don't know. I think it is. Maybe not. And he also wrote The Source of Shadows. But there's also two other writers on this. One being Shane McKenzie, who also wrote the segment from ABC's of Death 2.5, PM for Matador segment. Also the Quinceanera, also the Bloody Bits, Madre de Dios segment, as well as the Dolce Muerte from Aztec segment. So they've worked together in the past. Not surprised they're working together again here. But then we also have Perry Blackshear, who wasn't really involved with the other two, and has written a few other interesting genre pieces like They Look Like People, The Siren, and When I Consume You. Now, before I get into the cast, I just want to say that probably the best thing about this movie is the acting. It is fantastic. And that's because a good portion of the acting is from genre vets. Or not even genre vets, but acting veterans. Starting off with the Lupita character previously mentioned. She's the main person behind the community. She's the one holding everybody together. And that's played by Adriana Barraza, who has a very, very long career behind her with a lot of stuff, including 34 episodes of Imperio de Cristal. Again, some of her credits are going to be, Latin, probably from, I don't know, of Spanish origin, be it Spain, Mexico, Latin America, something like that. I don't know where they're coming from, but they're definitely not, US, Canadian, UK television as far as I can tell. But she was in Amores Perros, which I do believe got quite a, it might have been nominated for an Oscar, I don't know, but it was something that, made the rounds even up here in Canada. She was in Babel, Drag Me to Hell, and Soon the Darkness. She was also in Thor. Yes, the movie Thor. She was in 8 episodes of The Strain. She was in Rambo Last Blood. She was in Penny Dreadful City of Angels. And oddly enough, she's possibly and probably most well known, at least to circles that have seen these particular things. Again, not available up here where I am, but she is known as Elvira in Bajo Mismo Rostro, or Trinidad Altamirano in Silvana Sin Lana. Both of those she was in over 100 episodes each. So that is a long, maybe, I don't know, maybe they're soap operas, maybe they're Latin American soap operas. I don't know what they are. I didn't really delve into them. But, and I mean, this is only a small portion. Like, her catalog is huge. Next we got L. Scott Caldwell as Dolores, which is one of the friends of Lupita. And she was in Without a Trace. She played Liddy in Alien Nation. She was in Extreme Justice, The Fugitive, The Net, Division 19. But maybe for modern audiences, she was best known as Rose Nadler in Lost. Yes, that interesting television series that is Lost. We've got Joshua Caleb Johnson, who plays Caleb, who is Dolores' grandson. And he's obviously not like a little kid, but he's, relatively new to the acting scene. I would say he would be later teens, maybe early. No, I'd say he's later teens. Maybe 17 or something like that. Maybe turning 18. I don't know. Maybe 18. Somewhere in that area. So it's not surprising that most of his resume consists of some shorts and one-off episode appearances, but he was in 3 episodes of a show called Snowfall. Next up on the list, we've got Clayton Landy as Morris. Now, this is somebody who, depending on... he's been in the game for a while, so you may or may not recognize him. In his earlier career, he was in 34 episodes of Knots Landing, the soap opera. At least I call it a soap opera. Maybe, I don't know. Do you call it a soap opera? I call it a soap opera. He was also in Quiet Cool, Assault of the Killer Bimbos. You gotta love Assault of the Killer Bimbos. The Blob, an episode of Freddy's Nightmares, The First Power, Ghost in the Machine. And so, early on in his career, I don't know what happened, but obviously, he was in a lot of horror films, so I don't know if he tried to get out of the horror films, like maybe being a little bit typecasted in that, and tried to go elsewhere. But it seemed like he was just essentially doing, one-off, episodes of television series here and there. He kept working, but it wasn't really any big name roles, or he would have had a small bit part in some other movies and stuff like that. So he started coming back. He was in Scary Movie 5. He was in Sully, and then I think he did Faceless, a movie called Faceless, shortly before this one. But where I mostly know him as, it's Lorenzo from Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. Yes, he was one of the orderlies, which is funny because you see him now as he's older. It's hard to make the connection. It's hard to make the connection between the two. But if you've watched, I mean, we probably all have watched Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which is my favorite of the Elm Streets. I've watched it so many times that, even in his older age, I could still see that I was like, and at first it took me a while to really pin him down, where I was like, he seems familiar, right? There's something about him that seems familiar. In fact, a lot of them seem familiar. And that's because whether it's a small role or not, I've seen a lot of them before in other, projects and such, and so, yeah, so that I definitely eventually clued into who he was, and it took a bit. It took a bit, and I wasn't quite sure. I thought I might have known him from older horror movies, and I couldn't quite I didn't quite get that it was Dream Warriors, but there was something there. I thought there was a few, and again, like going over those lists, yeah, he definitely had seen him in horror films when I was growing up, type thing, or even still now, because I ain't stopped watching the horror movies. We're in the 31 Days of Horror. Next we got Bertilla Damas as Yolanda, and again, some of these people, they got good credits. She was in Nothing But Trouble, Terror on Track 9, which is a TV movie, but as far as from the synopsis, I think I've seen it. The TV movie Mr. Murder, and 4 episodes of Grimm. So, and there was a whole bunch again, like one-off appearance episodes of TV series and such. But yeah, like some of these people have been acting for a long time. We'll just put it that way. We got Grover Coulson as Clarence, who started off with All American Murder and Night Vision. He ended up in Friday Night Lights. He was in The Lone Ranger, the 2013 film, you know the one. Jack's Apocalypse, and just recently did something called a Ghost Story, which I haven't seen, but I did a little reading on it. I was like, maybe I should check that out. Maybe you'll see it in the next year's 31 Days of Horror. I don't know. I don't know if it's available. Then we got Kelly Angel as Raquel, who is essentially Caleb's delinquent mother. And she's been in quite a few things, but as little bit roles and stuff like that. But anything, of note in terms of genre and such was she was in First Man on Mars. She was in an episode of Preacher, 3 episodes of The Purge. And one of the things I found funny, and I guess IMDb and such like that likes to put these things in here, but she was in a lot of uncredited roles. So I don't know what the story is behind that and all that kind of stuff, but unless you are somebody who's really made it big, where it's like, Johnny Depp was in this movie uncredited, or Meryl Streep was in this movie uncredited, or Harrison Ford was in this movie uncredited. Those are kind of things that you're like, that's interesting, right? They were in that movie, but they didn't get a credit for it. Those are kind of things that I don't really think that it's important that we know that she's in a movie but uncredited. So I'm guessing she put that in there herself or her agent or something like that, because really, does it help you? I don't know. And then finally, of course, and possibly the one actor I found the most recognizable, is Richard Brake, who plays Mr. Big, and that's the big evil daddy of the movie. He's the guy who buys the community center and opens the bingo hall of doom. But yes, he was in things like Death Machine, Virtual Terror, Soul Searcher. He was also in Batman Begins, and one of the things I recognize him mostly from is Doom, that film adaptation of the video game. He was also in The Black Dahlia, Hannibal Rising, Outpost, the 2009 Halloween 2. He was in Detention, The Number Station, Thor: The Dark World, The Cannibal in the Jungle, and he was also the Night King in Game of Thrones, if you watch that series. He was in 31, Mandy, 3 from Hell, and Tremors, Shrieker Island. One of the things that's funny is he often plays the bad guy, or a somewhat less than enjoyable character, we'll just say. But he plays it well. He's really, I don't know. If you saw him, you'd be like, oh, that guy. Okay, yes, I know, I recognize him, because he's been in a lot of others. I only collected a handful of things here that he had been in. So, yeah, like I said previously, the best thing about this film is the acting. The story is okay. I wouldn't say it's anything really new. It is somewhat gory. Lots of pus and ooze and blush. It's not overly so, but it is more than a lot of, your horror films of this nature. It is slightly a comedy, though I wouldn't, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's plays up comedy for laughs. It is lighthearted. It has a lighthearted nature, that kind of comedy that just sort of comes into play with the film. But I didn't find it, laugh out loud funny, not ha-ha funny. where the film kind of lost me is like, the film uses its locations very, very well. And is shot for the most part really, really well. It looks good until you get into the latter portion of the movie when, you know, Mr. Big essentially takes over and opens this casino-like bingo hall. That's where things start to... I don't know. It's not working for me. Everything seemed cheap, fake. It's like they just didn't have the budget to do what they had in their mind type thing, right? Like I said, it's a casino-like atmosphere, right? So there's lots of screens and lights and all this kind of stuff, and the cinematography, you know, whenever they're dealing with the evil entities and all this kind of stuff, uses a lot of color. Lots of, you know, reds and greens and stuff will show up in an otherwise, you know, what would have been a normally lit scene. You know, it's the next thing you know, it's all red, or there's red and green and, you know, just stuff like that. And I don't know, the movie looks so good otherwise, and then you just get to these parts and you're like, oh my god, it just looks so cheap. And it took me out of the movie. Like, it really did. They just didn't have the money to do this big, flashy, casino-like thing that they obviously were trying to do. Would it take away from the movie for everybody? I don't know. Probably not. Because you probably wouldn't have as much invested in the movie as I did until it started getting wonky, you know, in my mind. Like, I thought it was good. Things were good. It was well told. Like I said, the acting is what really sells this movie. It is like top notch acting from anybody. Like, even the campiness portion of it still has an air of credibility, right? Somebody's sending me a message. So yeah, it was disappointing that aspect took me out of the movie. It took me out of I just couldn't stop looking at it and going, wow, that looks so cheap and cheesy. And now, I will give them credit. Between the director and the cinematographer, they did try and add some elements to the way they shot the scenes to kind of, I don't know if it was to like mask the lack of, you know, what they had to work with, or if it was just, you know, they didn't care about the set dressing and the sets and stuff that they had set up. I don't know what, without knowing the you know, why the decisions were made, it's hard to say. But that being said, the film overall is enjoyable. I would say in general it's like a 2.5 out of 5, but I'm going to give it a 3 because the acting was way better than it should have been. Like, way better than it should have been. And sometimes, you know, like that's what it takes, right? Like, you get an aspect of a movie and it's just so good that it helps you forget other things about the film. Unfortunately, it didn't make me forget everything about the film that I didn't like. But, you know, that happens. Anyways, let me know if you've seen Bingo Hell, because by the time this comes out, it'll have probably been out for like 10 years. I'm so behind on these dang things. But yeah, anyways, let me know. I love to hear from you. More 31 Days of Horror to come. Till next video, take care. Have a good one.